G'day sunshines, welcome to Tarot with Tracey, and today our topic is conflict. All that conflict that bubbles up in our lives, and how do we deal with it? What would tarot wisdom bring to us if we were able to listen in to one of the words or one of the cards or the whole story today? Use your own intuition, your own inner instincts, your wiseness to feel what it is that you need to hear today about conflict, because we all have it. Like where we have life, there is conflict. So what will tarot wisdom teach us today? Let's start with this fact of when we have conflict, our King of Swords is going to plunge into reverse. So when we have conflict, it sets off adrenaline. Almost every time we're going to get a burst of adrenaline. And when we get a burst of adrenaline, the very clear physiological and psychological implications are that our frontal cortex goes offline. So we can't think straight. So when you see children fighting and you say to them, use your words, children, I can tell you there is nothing less effective to say to them. You try saying that next time you're fighting with someone. You try saying to yourself, just need to use my words, sweetheart. Or say to your partner or someone you're fighting with, just use your words, dear. It doesn't go down well because there are no words, because the frontal cortex is in a complete paralysis. King of Swords is not happening. So when we have conflict, we can expect our verbal abilities and our clarity of thinking to go straight out the window. So that's the situation at the moment. There is conflict. We can't think straight. How did the conflict arise? Well, this is navigating a transition normally successfully by taking all the difficult thoughts and feelings with us on the boat and calmly steering towards the calmer waters, with the rough waters on the one side and the calm waters on the other. This hasn't been happening for us. Something has triggered us, and what that means is that all those swords stuck in the boat, which normally we just take them with us, and swords are difficult thoughts, difficult feelings, difficult stories that we're telling ourselves. A story like, this always happens to me, it's not fair, they should never have done that. Like all these powerful stories that place us as victims or place the others as victims, or just create conflict as something that is not useful but damaging, whereas conflict can be useful. It is a really important tool to be able to learn from and work with conflict and make it into something special. Anyway, back to the story of the Six of Swords. Normally, we take all those difficult stories and thoughts of challenge with us on the boat as we carefully go towards the still waters. But recently when we were triggered, and sometimes depending on the trigger, you just can't do this. And one of these thoughts, like it's not fair, leaps up, grabs a hold of what you're doing and starts dominating the way that you then talk to that person and the actions that you then take. And of course, in taking that sword right out of the boat, in terms of wrestling with it and owning this line, this story, this thought, you get a hole in your boat. Your boat fills up with water and you sink. You don't make it to the calm waters. Whereas what we're looking for normally is to be able to carry all those difficult things that bubble up inside of us, thoughts, feelings, stories, in the boat, with a child just sitting there going, I'm not even going to play with them, I'm just sitting here. And with your feminine divine, the woman just sitting there, she's not going to try and fix it or mollycoddle it, she's just going to sit there with all the difficult uncomfortableness, and that beautiful part of you that's able to function and get that pole and steer towards calm waters does that job, carrying the swords with. So this is what we would be aiming for, but we're not there. We're in this place of conflict and struggle street and pulling out the swords and then not thinking clearly, and the boat is sinking. So what do we then do? What can we then do? Let's have a look. We have to realize what it is that we're resisting. What is the block to our making progress and having a healthy relationship with conflict? And here we have the Four of Swords in reverse. So the block is that we are not taking the time to stop, learn, listen, process, integrate, regulate, stop the catastrophe of feelings and shouting at each other, or, taking actions that are going to make things happen the way I want. We're not taking the time to soften and understand, where am I really coming from? What are the old stories and old wounds that are being poked here? for me and for the other persons involved? Where is the miscommunication? But in order to do any of that, we need a pause button. We need to pause and take time out. Go for a walk, take an hour, take 2 days, 2 minutes, whatever it is that you actually need in this particular situation, to actually understand what's going on. And to understand, you'll have to bring your frontal cortex back online. And in order to get that cognitive processing back online, you're going to have to be calm. And that's going to take rest. It's going to or whatever it is for you that does make you calm, whether it's whether you go for a walk, or maybe you need to drink a quiet cup of tea, or talk to someone, whatever it is that calms down your farm. And as you do that, Spirit says, let me also help you with knowing why it is that you're staying triggered and not making progress here. The help that Spirit gives us is to realize that in any conflict situation, there is a loss. There are spilt cups. And one of our jobs as we're resting and integrating is to ask ourselves, what is it that I'm afraid of losing? Or what is it that I have lost here? What is it that I'm grieving in this conflict process? Or what is it that I'm afraid of grieving? And as we stop and we settle and we look at the spilt cups, the water can then flow past. Water is emotion, and you can see there that the water is flowing. It's not choppy, it's not stagnant, it's flowing. As we honor the loss and name the loss and identify the things that we're grieving, then the water will go under the bridge. And then when the time is right, we can turn around and see that there are still 2 upright cups and a choice to be made, actions to be taken. First, in order to be able to think about that, we need to get calm, we need to integrate, and then we can actually grieve, honor our losses, and then we can take right action. So in a conflict situation where you've been able to process, what Tarot is suggesting we then need to do is step inside the sanctuary. Rather than feeling that we are the walking woundeds, we are the victims of this conflict, which is a very common interpretation that we now have, or understanding or story that we now have about conflict. Like when there's something that's not going the way I want it to, then I need it fixed because that's not okay. Like we have this very strong identification of ourselves as having the right to whatever it is that we're thinking that we have the right to. Instead of actually going, okay, I'm not the victim here. It's just a situation that has unfolded in this way. This is what I choose to learn from this situation. And now I choose to act with my own strength, my own ability to step into the beautiful light of the sanctuary. Quite often, it's very dysfunctional, but quite often we walk around sucking our thumbs and, sulking and having little tantrums down outside the gates of the beautiful sanctuary inside. Because we just feel like someone else should sort this, or we just don't want it to be like this. But in fact, our next right action can be, should we choose it, to walk through the gates and into connection, into sanctuary, into safety. And it might be with a particular person that you're fighting with or disagreeing with or having differences with. It could be within your own self, finding that there's a space in which to connect within you. Or it could be that you step into the sanctuary of something outside of you, or outside of the people that you're fighting with or disagreeing with, that you then go home or out to friends, or you step into a different workplace, some other place where there is or some other connection with the person that you're disagreeing with that is not fraught, that is peaceful, because you have processed, you have honored the losses, you have processed what's going on, and then you can step into safety and connection without feeling victimized, but feeling strong and powerful and warm and held and loved and loving. So this, what would that look like? What would you do in this conflict situation if you were going to go, I'm not the victim here, I choose to do what? What would that be? That would be strong and beautiful and connective and healing. Because if you do that, this guy was actually upside down, so we put him back upside down again. Your Knight of Pentacles can just rest instead of trying to make a difference and fix things up and till fields and whatever else that he needs to get on with. He can actually go, oh, she's done what she needs to do. He's actually taken that action now. I can just rest. And there's a tranquility that can then arise out of that conflict because the lesson has been learned and no more needs to be done. You have exercised your power and taken the action of inclusivity and warmth that you needed to take. And when your Knight of Pentacles rests, this one was upright, then you get this gorgeous energy of the Six of Cups. And this is an energy of forgiveness. It's an energy of reciprocity. And forgiveness doesn't mean that you let someone keep abusing you or doing the wrong thing. Forgiveness is that you just approach them with compassion, or don't approach them, but you view them with compassion. And for yourself as well, that you view yourself with compassion for the conflict that has arisen. You accept the offerings of the bouquet and you offer the offerings of the bouquet, and you move on, or you move in, whatever it is that you need to be doing to establish healthy, beautiful, sanctuary, love-kind relationships. So this becomes possible once we have managed the chaos of dealing with the conflict in all these different ways. So this is the beauty of tarot wisdom for us today. Conflict is not the end of the road. Conflict is just a part of being human. And if we can approach it in ways that understand our physiology and our hormones, if we can approach it in ways that allow us to rest and integrate and grieve for what we've lost, and if we can have the courage to step into the sanctuary and the wise sanctuary where we have learnt and we take the actions that we need to be safe, to be understood, and to be understanding, then we can change our dynamic from one of locked, blocked conflict to one of giving and receiving, of reciprocity, of what the Andean shamans would call Aini, the art of giving and receiving and reciprocity. And that's the art of being human. Bright, Aini blessings.